I think walking that line that you're talking about is it's the way that we do it is a term we call we tap into infinity thinking, right? Infinity thinking is it's based on what we call the infinity matrix and the infinity process. And infinity thinking is stepping out of the thought process of duality thinking, of this or that, right? And the metaphor I like to use is it's a glass of, you've got your glass of water metaphor, right? Is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? And, when we ask that to any audience, it's split, right? You get 50% one way, 50% the other way, almost inevitably, right? But the students that have taken our trainings would say, oh, well, no, the glass is neither. It's not half full or half empty. It's both. And it's full all the time, but with two different substances. It actually overflows.
This podcast is brought to you by Creative Studio, the #1 provider of one-to-one applied neuroscience coaching and development programs designed to enhance your creativity and effectiveness. Find out more at neurocreative.studio.
You're listening to the Ambition Incubator podcast, and I'm your host, Deirdre Morrison. My thing is helping people understand how our brains work so that we can be better and do better in any area of life that's important to us. So as well as bite-sized brain science, I'll be bringing you interviews and advice from experts and guests who specialise in working with entrepreneurs and leaders to help them explore potential, possibilities and ways to be more effective. And the best bit? We can start right now. In terms of the work that you do and the length of time that you've been doing it, can you see a difference between how you respond to something like this now, which, okay, isn't a big deal in anybody's world really, versus how you would have responded to it maybe 15, 20 years ago?
Well, just to clarify, having an interview with you is a big deal.
Oh, so thank you, Ross. You're so sweet.
But one of the things that is part of the work that Gary and I do is we've developed what we call the choice convergence point. And that is relatively remaining in the eye of the storm. Okay, so let's take this situation from this morning as the storm. And if I am going to allow myself to get, riled up, upset, pissed off, whatever the case may be, I'm not going to make rational decisions. It's physiologically impossible. I mean, I know you deal a lot in neuroscience and such, and that's exactly what is happening is when we get upset and we're starving for what we need to make rational decisions. And we've taught this to thousands of people on, listen, everyone thinks, well, for this big event, this big tragedy or this big storm that I'm going to go through, then I'll use it. I'm like, no, you use it for everything. You use it for the little things because that's when you're practicing for the big things. So if you get in the habit of using the system over and over and over and over again, then it's like you had a guest on who was a fighter pilot.
That's right.
A couple weeks ago that I was listening to. And I'm sure if you asked him, pilots, what are the things that pilots practice the most? They practice for disasters. They practice disasters. Airline pilots practice, things going wrong and things in the disasters that all the possibilities that can go wrong. And the reason they practice that is so when the event may or may not happen, they can remain in that eye of the storm. They can remain calm. And they can make the rational, good choices and decisions that they need to make.
Of course, we do have we have a bias towards negativity as well, because like you're just saying here, people want to be able to get out of a sticky situation when it happens. We want to have the muscle memory. We want to have the reflexes, and we learn those through practice. But I I guess the other side of that then is that if we are always looking to disaster, we don't necessarily know what to do with the good things that come our way when they come. We're not prepared for those.
Yeah, and I think that, I think there's been a conditioning that has evolved to not just be looking for the negative, but to dwell on the negative. And I think that's the difference, right? Is that we can be aware of, hey, okay, the time factor didn't work out the way we wanted to, or the way that we expected. So there was some hiccup there. But the dwelling on that is, I think, where the challenge shows up, where then it turns into a whole story, right? It turns into the whole drama of it starts to unfold from that dwelling of it. And one of the principles we teach in a process we call the infinity process, one of the processes we teach, the first and foremost is we need to have things that consistently bring us back to being present. Because when you're back to being present, that's when you're at what we call the choice convergence point. You're in the eye of the storm. You're in this place where the potential, the possibility is endless. But instead of dwelling on the negative, which we've been conditioned to do, our philosophy is that there is just as many, if not more, and I like to say we're leaning a little bit more on the side of there's just as much, if not more, potential and possibility of something good happening as opposed to something bad happening.
Yeah, there's very definitely a tipping point, isn't there? And I mean, you can see in terms of our evolution, in terms of our brain's mission to keep us safe, that noticing the things that can go wrong is a good strategy. But it doesn't take us into the beyond, if you like. It doesn't take us into a state of creativity or innovation beyond escaping from something, I guess.
Yeah, and the way I put it is that we don't want this. Everybody strives for shooting for balance in life, and we're really not really advocates of that. What we want is a slight imbalance, but we want the imbalance on the side of evolution and growth. Right? So that we're always tipping the scale on that side of things, and so slightly imbalanced on that side, because that's how we've evolved as human beings. When we get to the fight or flight, or the survive or die aspect of it, the reason we've evolved as human beings is because we've always been slightly tilted towards growth and evolution as a default. But the conditioning that we get, that based on society and all these other things, that dwelling on the negativity and building up the stories that that are just in our heads many times, most of the time, then that's where I think we need to make the shift. I think what we need to do is say, okay, well, yes, there's just as much negativity as positivity, but we're slightly tilted. If it's 51%, slightly tilted towards the positive growth and evolution.
Well, actually, that's a really interesting word that you use there. And I mean, obviously, there's such a huge cocktail of things going on in our brains. It's totally. Never any one thing. It's this and that. There's always multiple. It could be this. It could be that. It could be both.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I think this word that you used here, shift, is really interesting, and I would like to. I'd like to see what you guys have seen over the course of the time that you've been doing this work. Is that tilt going in a different direction? Is it going in a new direction? Is it following the same course? And is the tide just moving the way the tide always moves?
Well, here's the thing: is that what we see is that it is moving in a positive and a growth direction. That's what we see, and the reason that we see that is because when we're looking at or experiencing our day, minute by minute, we want to pause, interpret, and then respond with all of our interactions. And what you see in society today, a good portion of it, that is that people are almost being engineered to do this reactionary life. I mean, the news, television, stuff like that has always been, stepping it up. If it bleeds, it leads, as they say. Now, when you have social media that is just priming people. They're priming them on almost a second by second basis, because now you are carrying the news, you are carrying the events with you wherever you go. And then you they encourage you to use the notifications, so think bing, 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 bing. That can almost be, your Pavlov's dog in a certain sense, because you're like,
Absolutely.
oh, what's going on? Something's happening.
Yeah.
I have to know. I have to see. I have to react.
Yeah, you start to salivate, right?
You do in one way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that stimulation can be a reward, can't it? I mean, we're getting that. We've got this little dopamine kick because we've got this new bit of information, because we're something has been primed to activate within us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then what you see, and I notice this a lot, because Gary and I both, when we are interacting, face to face with people, and even online sometimes, they are trying to pull you into their chaos. And we just like, oh hum, yeah, okay, yeah, I understand, I see where you're going. Yeah, but you have to. And it's like, no, actually, I don't. And such. I'm going to instead pull you into my calmness. I'm going to pull you into the eye of the storm, and such. And then you can see, and you can calm down, and you can see what's really happening.
I like to think of it as it's like what we see is the rise of what we call the spiritual badass. Okay, and it's, if you look at history has given us evidence to show that the early days of being a badass was all about physical violence matched with brute strength, right? Mm-hmm. But the essence of a spiritual badassery is always about knowing what you wanted and going for it congruently and confidently. And then aligning with your divine purpose and piercing the veils of reality in order to set new standards and examples for human potential, right? But as humans, we got it wrong. At some point, sometime, we got it wrong. Somehow we got hoodwinked into believing that the path to spiritual evolution was only based on identity, whether it was a person's labeled as man or woman, child, adult, royalty or peasant, educated, unschooled, black or white, whatever name a person was labeled with, and for whatever reason. We somehow thought potential growth and evolution was dictated by those labels, right? And, you think about it. In human history, it wasn't too long ago that a person was most likely to be born into a position of empowerment just based on their societal status or parents. Right? And in some places around the world, a lot of these archaic practices are still adhered to. Right?
Yeah.
In those types of societies, the illusion of power was fed through the acts of being merciless, and only a few select individuals were destined for the freedom, influence, or power they wanted, while all the common folks suffered and were met with a glass ceiling as they attempted to rise above it. And but mostly it was just knowledge that was kept from them.
Yeah. That is an interesting thing that you brought up, about how societies shift and change. And we're obviously seeing a lot of changes now. But we obviously have the trickle down, the backlog effect of everything that our societies have been for the last number of centuries, millennia, whatever you want to say. So I guess then the question is, are we going around in circles effectively? Because if we look at, the wisdom that we're now arriving at, if we look at the discoveries that we're now making, even in terms of, what we're finding with, the more people dive into the neuroscience fields and discover more about consciousness and emotions and all of these things. And if we look at some of the ancient traditions, we also find that they have, somehow managed to work out a lot of this without any of that. So are we destined to just go around in circles and swing from one side of it to the other repeatedly? Is it like a pendulum?
I don't see it so much as circles or a pendulum. I see it more as when you look at the graphs on the stock market,
Mm.
we're on a continual rise, but things go down, and then we rise again, and then things go down, and we rise again. And if you take that over the the course of centuries, I think we'll see that. So we're making progress, and then some schmuck gets in charge, and then then we go back down, and it's like, oh, we got to strive back up. But each time we go down and then we strive again, we strive higher than we were before. And that's the evolution and the growth that Gary's talking about.
Yeah, it's the rise of the spiritual badass. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And so, and that badass is like, okay, you got me, you kind of blindsided me there, but I'm coming back stronger. And we as a society, as a species, are doing that on a day-to-day, year-to-year, century-to-century basis. I mean, and that's what we're seeing. If you look at Gary, what was the book that we were talking about? The Fourth Turning.
Yeah.
I mean, where they're actually able to graph this out themselves. It's like that we have, we do work in cycles, but those cycles aren't actually a circle per se, but it is a constant ascent to a better evolutionary path.
Well, let's hope so, because we need to go somewhere better than this, I think, a lot of the time. Guys, you two have been working together for a heck of a long time. And I'm just wondering, in terms of your collaboration and your, I guess, creative meeting, how is it that you sustain that over such a long time? What are the ups and downs in that? How do you feed it and nourish it?
Drugs.
Okay, well, should we put in the show notes then the list?
They're neurochemical drugs.
Neurochemical drugs, exactly.
Yeah.
We were working on a different project together. That's which brought us together. And I was working on something, he was working on something, and we kind of compare notes, and we're like, did you just look over my shoulder while you're making these things?
Get out of my head.
We just found that there was, we just found that there was just, we just really, really were on the same, the same level, the same thinking, the same path. And as we progressed, we found that, we wanted the same things out of life. We wanted the same things for the world.
And what are those things that you want for the world?
Well, we want to make it better, to make it better today than it was yesterday. Not to make these grandiose strides that you see the politicians always saying that they're going to do in 1 year. It's like, no, we're changing. We want to change society. We want to change the way society can think. We don't tell people what to think, but we do like to show them a better way of thinking, a better way that is not going to be reactionary. That's going to always be moving towards their path, their goals, their visions. And to do that, it takes a different type of a thinking process. And we call it the infinity process. And it's a way of expanding the mind on a day-to-day, minute-by-minute, second-by-second manner, so that we can actually override a lot of those negativities, those negative thoughts that a person has grown up with. They've inherited them, whether it be from their parents or their teachers or society, their friends, and they don't even realize it. That is their normal.
Yeah.
But it's not serving them. And they don't understand now that they're 20, 30, 40, 50, 70 years old. They don't understand why it's not serving them. Why am I here? Life just sucks. Why am I here? Well, you just told us why. Because in your mind, in your reality, life sucks.
Yeah, and I think the key thing in to answer your question was that Ross and I had these experiences and these awareness that something needed to change, and in that we believed that we had a certain skill set and knowledge, experience that we could bring to the table that was innovative, and it was an innovative approach to helping someone become their ultimate self. And self, we call it, the acronym we use is spiritually evolving life force, right? So, and we wanted to, to do something powerful. So the first thing we did was commit to a vision that was bigger than us. And because we've had that vision that's bigger than us, it's allowed us to kind of understand that there's a process, that that there's time that needs to happen for certain things. So we're not too hung up on this or hung up on that. Oh, you didn't get that done. Okay, well, there's a reason for it. So we flow really well in the middle of all that, and don't really we don't dwell on the negative potential of things. We allow ourselves to be in the flow of the moment, and allow that to be the guiding force based on that vision, because we believe the human family, right, is in the middle of what is the most significant transformation since the emergence in Africa over hundreds of thousands of years ago, right? It's a transformation, as you mentioned earlier, is that more people are coming into awareness of the science part of it, the spiritual, and how they come together. And it's a transformation that's revealing both unprecedented global challenges, which are showing up, that are bringing to light the things that we as a collective are seeing, are reflecting on, say, hey, that's the reality that we prefer not to have. And so it's showing up to give us that reflection. Because if we don't have that as a reflection, then we don't know where to go.
Yeah. And I love that, you mentioned there, these two sort of aspects of how we are now looking at things. And I think this is very relevant as well, because, effectively, you two and myself and some of my colleagues, we're all trying to do the same work, and we're coming at it from slightly different angles. Yeah. And like I said, all of these ancient traditions that have such great wisdom, they've all tried to do the same work from different angles as well. And we have, it's horses for courses as well, really, because if you want to help people understand certain things, then you meet them where they're at, and you don't necessarily, deliver a very intuitive message to somebody who is very rational and logical and analytical. And similarly, for somebody who is very intuitive, there's no point trying to, give them the hard data and the numbers. So. So I guess this is the next question, and this is the one where this could go completely off the rails, pear-shaped rabbit hole, and all the rest of it. But I know that this is a question. Rabbit holes are great. It's gone already. This is the thing that I know I spend time thinking about this, and I'm sure you guys do as well, because there is a line that we sort of have to walk as well, isn't there, to try and draw the best from both aspects, from the intuitive mind and the rational mind, and the research and the information that we have coming from fields like neuroscience, and also tapping into what we're getting from spirituality as well. How do you guys walk that line?
Well,
in 10 words or less.
Oh, there's so much for the rabbit hole. I think it's when we look at different things come up. Science discovers this and this, and and we're looking at going, well, but we already knew that. Science is now confirming what they were doing 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago. And saying, hey, look what we discovered. Like, you didn't discover anything. You just confirmed what so many people already knew. But it helps because there is that analytical individual that we deal with that says, well, this is just woo-woo, hocus pocus. I'm like, well, let me show you the research paper. Okay. I mean, it's like when your favorite periodical is Nature magazine, it comes in real handy because, oh, hey, look at this little article here. They just confirmed this and they just confirmed this. And, and so what I see is that when something that comes up, whether it be a science or in nature, and people fight it because it doesn't match their belief system, okay, then it just needs a little bit more prodding. It just needs a little bit more massaging. And so we're not stuck in, this is it. And that's, we just, as Gary said, we just kind of flow and say, hey, what do you think about this? Did you realize this? We're sending articles back and forth to each other. Now, mind you, just to let everybody know, we live 300 miles apart from each other. And, we everything that we're doing, we do, thank goodness for technology.
Yeah.
In the last couple of years anyways. Yeah.
Yeah, especially.
Yeah.
So technology is not the enemy. Technology is a tool that we utilize very, very well.
Yeah.
But when people see these things and they read them and they just read the headline or they just kind of glance at something, and then they instantly create that reaction that that can't be true. Look into it. Look at it. Go deeper into it a little bit.
Yeah, and even if it does confirm something that you already believe, still go deeper into it, because we have a confirmation bias as well. Absolutely. And we want things that support what we already believe.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you want to talk about the ultimate dopamine hit is when, it's like, oh, hey, look at this. Now I can really show people that, the science is behind this as well as this, the spiritual realm. I mean, it's all kind of coming together. There really isn't a difference between the two.
I think walking that line that you're talking about is, it's the way that we do it is a term we call, we tap into infinity thinking, right? Infinity thinking it's based on what we call the infinity matrix and the infinity process. And infinity thinking is stepping out of the thought process of duality thinking, of this or that, right? And the metaphor I like to use is it's a glass of, you've got your glass of water metaphor, right? Is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? And, when we ask that to any audience, it's split, right? You get 50% one way, 50% the other way, almost inevitably, right? But the students that have taken our trainings would say, oh, well, no, the glass is neither. It's not half full or half empty. It's both. And it's full all the time, but with two different substances. It actually overflows. Right? And so it's not a this or that, it's a this and that, and that, and that, and that, and that, and that. And taking from there the choices that serve us. So from there, the glass is useful when I'm thirsty for it to be half full. Right?
Yeah.
So my focus goes on that. But when it's not serving me in that way, and I need to see more of the potentiality of what that container can do, then I need to see it as not only half full, but also overflowing just with two different substances.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a far more creative way of looking at things, and also there's a quote that I keep coming back to from Lao Tzu. And he says that in order to be what we might be, we must be willing to give up what we are. Words to that effect.
Yeah.
But, very often giving up what you are means giving up the fact that you are right. And I use air quotes that. So being willing to, have your mind jump the tracks about something that you thought you knew.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of courage.
Because a lot of things that you've created, you've built upon what you thought was right, or what you
were told
correct.
Was right as well.
Exactly,
and such, and then to finally discover that it wasn't, or isn't, or it's not not as you had defined it. That's tough, and such because we've both experienced people who are you literally see them shaking. As if they are physically in harm's way, but inside they're feeling that their world is crumbling down when it's really not.
Yeah,
and those belief systems are powerful. And so one of the things that we work with, especially when we're doing our badass challenge, is we talk to people about their definitions of things. So when someone says something to us, we say, well, how do you define that? What do you mean by that? And you'd be surprised at how many people really don't know. Like, I don't know. That's just what I'm used to saying, or what I'm used to, to believing. It's like, but what's the let's break this down.
Yeah.
And there's some great breakthroughs then.
I can imagine.
Mhm.
You guys run a 5-day challenge, isn't that right? I mean, I know we could go on for at least another 30 minutes, but we better not. But I do
30?
want
Only
to
30?
Today.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would like to give people a little bit of information about that, if you can, so that they know where to go if they want to find out more about what you're doing and what you're working on.
Yeah. So the challenge is based on, again, we talked about a little bit that there's a spiritual revolution at hand, right? And the most influential in that revolution, we believe, will be the business owners, entrepreneurs, and the vanguards, like yourself, who have gifts they need to bring to the world, right? And whether they have a business or they're thinking about getting into a business, the quote unquote business badass is really what this challenge is about. And it's a process where we start off by getting clear on definition of yourself, right? Because knowing who you are in that whole process is key and important. And then once you have that, then then we take you through some processes within the 5 days of knowing why you is important and why now is important, right? So why you are chosen and why now is the time for you to show up and be that.
So where do people go to find out about this?
So we do the challenge approximately every 2 months.
Gary, what is the address that people need to go to register for the challenge or find out more about it?
And they'll find all the registration details there. And whenever you're listening to this, whenever you go there, the next challenge, if you miss one coming up, the next challenge it'll just be up. So that's the constant domain to register for that challenge.
Fantastic. And we will put that link in the show notes and in the blog page and all the rest of it. So people will be able to just click straight through. All right, guys, thank you so much. It has been so much fun as always. I look forward to doing it again with you at some point, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for listening. And we look forward to hearing from you guys. And Deirdre, it was awesome. Thanks for having us on. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. You're still here? Great. Look, I know there's a lot to choose from out there, so thanks for flying with Ambition Incubator Airlines, and I look forward to seeing you on board again soon. Seriously though, thank you for tuning in. My guests and I love hearing about what inspires you on the show and what advice has made a difference in your life or work, and what you'd like more of. So get in touch. If you want to know about my other work, head over to ambitionincubator.com for details. And don't forget to hit subscribe for more great interviews, advice, and bite-sized brain science every week.